So this here behind me is the Chroma Console from Hologram Electronics. It's basically a mix between a bunch of vintage recording gear sounds with a modern twist. Very colorful, it's easy to use once you kind of get a good layout of it, and it basically has indie music based effects. I'm going to give this thing a deep dive. I'm going to go over everything it does, show you what all the knobs and buttons do. I'll demo the individual sounds as well as combining some of these sounds together. We'll talk about the coolest thing it does, the weakest thing it does, its biggest features. Does it play well with other pedals? What can you use it for? And most importantly, is it even right for you? Now, if you end up enjoying any part of this video, make sure to like this and subscribe to my channel because I post all sorts of videos exactly like this one. Also, I guess I should mention all the gear that I'll be using in this video. So all the guitar and bass sounds you hear are going straight through this pedal. Now, the bass sounds will just go right through my DAW and I'll use digital amps. And for my guitar, I'll also use that, but I will also be using my tube amp, the Sheriff 22, for these like the tunes that I play throughout this video. The drums you'll be hearing are straight from Prism Tape. It's basically an indie pop drum software from Ava Music Group. I'm using these because the drums right off the bat sound like they've already been mixed and a part of all that processes. So it just makes the whole tracks that I make sound so much better, so much quicker. So to start off, I'm gonna dive into all the knobs and buttons and just show you how it works. But if you wanna hear the sounds of it already or whatever else, then I have time codes for you so you can feel free to jump around. So at a first glance, it can seem a little bit overwhelming, but let's just break it down real quick. So to start off, we have 4 different modules and each module has 5 of its own unique effects. Now each of these models will go as A, B, C, and D, especially the buttons. Now when you press each button, it'll go through each of these effects. It's color coordinated. So this means it's off. Now we're at drive, sweeten, fuzz, and all that. Now you can do that for each of these, and they also have an amount knob. So all the way off is you get no effect, all the way up you get all the effect, obviously, and then midway through you get some of the effect. Now each also has its own other adjustments. Now there's primary and secondary controls for these 3. The primary for character module is tilt, the primary for movement is rate, and the primary for diffusion is time. Now the secondary for character is sensitivity, secondary for movement is drift, and the secondary for diffusion is also drift. Now for texture, you do not have another adjustment, but these are very crazy and fun effects, so you really don't need this anyway. The amount knob is just enough. And we have our mix or our output level. I always just keep this at 100%. I can see why you would maybe use this, but if you want to get the whole sound of the Chroma Console, I leave that mix all the way up. Now real quick to get back into the buttons, you can see we have a few different button menus here. Now the primary controls of each of these modules is just you automatically turn this and that's in the primary. If you want to enter the secondary, you just tap these 2 quickly. It sets up these different menus and then you can adjust and you can see down here what level of the sensitivity you want, and then when you're done you just double tap these again. Now there's other things like gesture, which I'll show you later. You tap the end to and you can control that. If you want to get into the effects setup, you do it that way. And then if you want to get into presets, it's these 2. But like I said, I'll get more into that later. We also have a tap foot switch. This has tap tempo, something called capture, which I'll get into soon. And it can also navigate through the presets. These are just the indicator lights that communicate various functions, menus, and feature navigation. Of course, we have a bypass foot switch. Obviously it bypasses the signal. You can hold this down to access the user presets, and then you can also navigate the presets. Now, it's something that I was going to mention in the cool features, but I'm just going to mention it now. When you first get this pedal, you can calibrate it to the guitar that you're using. So different guitars have different pickups. Some have humbuckers, some have mini humbuckers, some have single coils. Basically sets your headroom level from low, medium, high, or very high. So the automatic calibration will just pick up that level that the pedal deems the most appropriate for the input material it samples. But of course, you can also experiment with this and choose your own headroom level. And how you do that is just you hold down both of these foot switches. Now you'll hear all of these in a second, but for the character module, these are our drives, our boosts, our compressions, fuzzes, so drive, sweeten, fuzz, howl, and swell as well. For movement, this is more of our modulations. We have the double for like that double tracking sound, vibrato, phaser, tremolo, and pitch. Diffusion is more of our reverbs and delays. We have cascade, reels, space, collage, and reverse. And then texture, which is just so fun. We have filter, squash, cassette, broken, and interference. Now, how we have this pedal set up is we have the drives going to the modulations going into the wet effects, reverb, and delays, and then that is going into the texture effects. Now, the insane thing is, like, let's say we have phaser here, we have drive here, we have a reverb, which is space, and then we have, let's just say we have broken. We can flip and mix match these in whatever way we want. So when we go into that effects setup, we can have the texture go first, and then we'll have the drive, and then we'll have the diffusion, and then we'll get into movement. And then this is our new signal. And this can we can get so deep into this and experiment with all these different sounds. It's insane, and I'll show you more of this in a second. All right, let's now jump into each of these individual sounds, and I'll start with the character module. So this is where I'm at for my clean tone. First effect we have is drive. So next we'll check out sweeten, which is like a compressor. Honestly, the sweet spot for me is like right around here. I like to keep it a little extra warm too. Now jumping into fuzz. All right, now we're looking into Howl. So Howl's sort of like a mix between drive and fuzz. You can get some really cool like black keys, kind of like blues tones with this kind of thing. And then moving on to the next, we have swell. Basically what swell does is just once you strum a chord, it slowly pans into the full sound. So now the secondary controls for the character module basically increase the sensitivity or decrease the sensitivity. The further you have it up here, the louder and more sensitive your drives and fuzzes are going to be. So this is like for max drives and things like that. Or if you don't want it that strong, these drives and fuzzes, you bring it down a little bit, and that's how you can adjust. And you can see by the lights here, this is where it'll start. This is the standard. It comes with the pedal right in the middle. And then when it's all the way up, you have the sensitivity cranked. All right, now moving on to the second module, movement. And we will start with the doubler. Next we have vibrato. So the rate increases the speed of the vibrato, bring it all the way down. Now this is getting kind of almost pitchy. Bring this all the way down. You get no effects at all. Next we have phaser, which is so cool. It can get very, very chewy when you crank the amount knob and bring the rate down all the way. And it gets super wacky when we bring it all the way up. All right, next we have tremolo. It basically cuts in and out when the rate's all the way down and the amount's all the way up. Here's about halfway. This is full. This is where I like to have it the best. And then next we have pitch. That's normal. This is down a little bit. We're getting very 8-bitty, Nyan Cat. Now for the secondary effects on the movement module, we get a drift sort of effect, and I will show you what that sounds like. So let's jump into here. This is all the way up for drift. And this is all the way down. It basically makes it a little bit more stuttery. And then we're actually also on the phaser. So it pretty much does something similar to the rest of those effects in the movement module. All right, next we have our diffusion module. Here's our clean tone. That's our cascade, kind of delay-like. This decreases our delay time. Super fun. I gotta stop because I'll keep going. Now next we have reels, which is also like a delay. All right, now moving on to space, which is the reverb. So this is just the mix of how much reverb you want. This is less reverb trail time. That's like a short hall or like a short room. And this is probably more Hall-y. And then we're moving on to collage. It's definitely much more sporadic than a basic delay. And the final one of the diffusion module, we have reverse. Now for the diffusion module, it also has drift. It does pretty much the same thing as the movement. And I guess we can listen to that and we'll use the reels setting for this. So. Still makes it like, it's more sputtery. More modulation kind of going on. Very cool. All right, last but certainly not least, the texture module. Here's our clean tone. It gives it almost sort of like a old radio kind of effect. Very lo-fi-esque. Now next we have squash. Next we have cassettes, which is super sweet. Next we have broken. This is just like crazy madness. And then we have interference, which is just more insane. Basically just breaks up similar to broken. A little tremolo, it's like kind of in and out, like you have your cable's a little messed up. So now I want to get into, does it play well with other pedals? Now this pedal can sort of be compared to something like the Strymon Deco. A lot of people ask where to put the Deco in their pedal chain because it does like 8 different things. There's modulation, there's overdrive, tape saturation, tape delay, there's flange, chorus, and all that. Now where you place that and the Chroma Console in your pedal board definitely matters, and that all depends upon what you're mainly going to use it for. So let's say that you're just going to use it for mainly modulations, and then maybe you'll use it for like a slight compression here and there. I would place that in your like modulation pedal section, but make it the first one of that section. Now where it can start to get tricky is that, let's say you want to use it for basically everything that it does, and which you have every right to say that because it does all of these things very well. When I recently played a gig, I used it for the first time. I was a little like, I don't know where to place it, but I ended up placing it. So I had my tuner, compression, drive or boost pedal, then the Chroma Console, then I had the Deco, my modulations, and then my delays and reverbs. Now granted, I'm also in like a rock band, so like I'm not playing very ambient sort of stuff, so I'm really not utilizing the reverbs and delays within the Chroma Console. Now personally, I think the Chroma Console shines its best when you play it with other cleaner pedals. When I started mixing in a few more drive pedals and boost pedals and all that, it didn't sound as great as it does by itself. I would honestly maybe use like a boost to just enhance the tones that are coming from this pedal. Now we can completely scratch everything I just said, and you can put this pedal wherever you want to really experiment with its sounds, because after all, this pedal is all about experimenting. So at the end of the day, you really have to figure out what sound that you want, then you place your pedal accordingly if you have a bunch of other pedals, which I'm assuming you do. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is mix some of these effects together so you can hear them in unison of one another, and I will show you the one that I use on one of these tracks in the mix of songs I did in this video. I think I use a little bit of compression for some sweetness. Movement, I went to phaser, bring that rate all the way down, amount right about 1 to 2 o'clock. Diffusion, I used the real sound out there, and then I used the cassette for this too. All right, so here's my clean tone. Now this is the very Tame Impala thing that I was talking about earlier. When I turn this off, this just gives me like less of that compression and slight drive it gives. But this is much more clean. Now let's hear some reverb, tremolo, and maybe some, let's go Howl. And then we're gonna not use the texture. Let's see how this sounds. Now what we'll do is we can get really, really clean with some really crazy fun effects. We'll just go to a vibrato now. We'll have the swell on character. Let's go about here. I'm gonna blast all of these too. We'll do collage, blast that. And then we'll go to, let's go to cassette again. Craziness is mainly coming from collage, so I'll turn that off and just, we got. All right, now getting into the insane feature of switching these modules. So how the module is, it goes character, movement, diffusion, and texture. That's the pedal chain. So now what we're gonna do is swap these, and I'm gonna make something up real quick. So this is what we have going in order. Now we're gonna switch this all together. So we're going to do this. Get into the effects setup, we're gonna have filter going first, going into phaser, then reverb going into drive. So this is what this now sounds like. It gets a lot more muddy because the drive is going after the reverb, which always gives you that like cool muddy mess. Now let's say we want a cleaner bit of that, so we'll go back in the effects setup. We'll still have filter go first. We'll have still phaser going, but now we're gonna put the drive before the reverb, and this is what we get. I'll turn filter off. It's not as of a washy mess with the drive before the reverb, obviously. So that's just another insanely cool feature. And like I said, there is so many effects and so many ways you can alter all this to get crazy sound. So definitely can experiment with it. So now I'm going to quickly go over some of the extra features that this thing has. So the first one is a gesture function. This basically allows you to record and loop knob movements of its primary controls. So it literally picks up the knob movement. So I don't have to adjust it, so you can get that cool effect that people actually want with their pedals, but they would have to manually do. Now you don't have to. Now another cool feature is something called capture. This is a sustainer and looper with up to 30 seconds of recording time. This can create droning pads or other musical phrases with the press of a single foot switch. If you want to exit out, you just simply tap that again. The Chroma Console can also store up to 80 presets. It's dual bypass. It has expression control mapping. It has tons of little changes in the global parameters or global settings for peak functionality and all that stuff. So whatever you're really into, it can really handle a lot. Now, what I'm going to mainly use the Chroma Console for is for its insanely good sounding modulations and fuzzes and anything that will give you that psych rock sound, which I know is so obvious because this is what basically this pedal is kind of built around. I shouldn't say built around, it's just that a lot of psych rock bands and artists, they want to use a lot of those vintage recording gear, which is what this pedal is based off of. I absolutely love the fuzz, the delays, the reels sound that it has on here. A lot of its sounds are very Tame Impala-esque, especially his like first 2 records. And that makes a lot of sense because Kevin Parker liked to use and experiment with vintage recording technology, gear, whatever you want to say. And if you love that sound, then this pedal can mimic that extremely well. Now, the one honest thing that I will say about this pedal is that I'm really not super into the reverb. So if you're getting this pedal because you think the reverb will sound great just for the reverb, which I don't know why you would get this pedal just for the reverb, I don't think it's for you. But like I said, you could like it. It's just my personal preference. So now I'll get into who is this pedal for and is it right for you? So honestly, when I do this part in all the gear demos I do, I have like a specific person in mind for who that piece of gear is for. But this one is a little tough. It's just so fun and experimental, and I can see a lot of different people who like different genres of music really use this thing to its full potential for whatever they want to use it for. Now, it's clearly centered around like that lo-fi indie pop psych rock kind of vibe. And if you're into that, then this thing is 100% no doubt for you. But if not, there's still so much you can do with it as just a standard like rock player, that like modern hip hop, like jazz kind of thing, and just like a bunch of other genres within that sort of realm. It's very experimental, so if that is your sort of vibe and you love to just mix mash different things and try get new sounds, this is for you. Someone who loves just putting a bunch of different sounds together to try and form something really cool and neat and unique and things like that. The Chroma Console is a brilliant idea from the giants over at Hologram Electronics, and this is my first pedal from them, so now I'm gonna have to go back into their catalog and check out some of their other stuff that they have had. It's insanely inspiring, super fun to play, and the $400 price tag can be justified because of all the different effects this thing gives you, and you can tweak all of them to just get an endless amount of sounds. If you have the cash and you want something that's just very different from everything on the market that can seem pretty mundane at times, then I definitely consider getting this. So I will leave you with that. So thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.